Garcia's Tuna on Toast.
I am so excited to welcome 66% of the record company to Tuna on Toast. It is Chris and Marc from the band The Record Company. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Our pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys as well. I'm starting off with an apology, if that's okay.
Sure. That's different.
My friend named Corey Irwin back in 2013 went to see you guys go play at Satellite.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got home pretty late, he was texting me like crazy, like, you got to see this band. They are the best band. I can't believe how fired up I am right now. And I totally dropped the ball like an idiot. And it wasn't until the last year or so where I'm like, oh my God, these three guys are so good. So I'm sorry that I'm late to the party, but I'm on board now.
Hey, man. Yeah. Anytime you get to the party is good with us.
But I want to rewind a little bit before we get to Play Loud, because I have questions since you're somewhat new to me and I'm such a big fan. I'll start with you, Chris. Are you from LA? Are you from the East Coast? Where are you from?
From Wisconsin. I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and then I moved to Milwaukee for a good long time. And then I moved out here in 2010, met Marc and Alex in 2011-ish, and in 2010 going in 2011, and that's when we formed the band.
When you got here, though, in 2010, were you coming out here by yourself? Did you know, like, okay, I know where I'm going, I've got tons of money in my pocket? Like, what was your situation when you came out here?
I was broke, as a joke. And I came out here, I was already married, and my wife had gotten an opportunity to work at the LA Times, and I had never had any intention of moving to Los Angeles. I wanted to, but I was just like, I guess I was like a lot of other people. I just was like, it didn't seem like that was a place that I would thrive. I was like, I'm just a normal dude, like to play my music, and I'm glad I was wrong. It ended up working out, but she got the job, and I just was like, all right, if you go out there, of course I'm coming with you. We're married, and if I'm going to go, I'm going to do the best I can. I might as well take a run at music out there, because I was doing music in the Midwest and had kind of settled into it, but it certainly was, I wanted it for a career, but it wasn't at that time. I was, teaching guitar students. I owned a guitar studio. And when I came out here, I just went full gusto for it. So I started working odd jobs and trying to play music, and got in bands right away. That is so cool. Your wife gets the job out here. You're, of course, as you said, you're married, but you're cool enough, I'm going to give up everything here. I'm going to go there. And was number one, what at the top of your list was, I'm going to take music more serious than I've ever taken it before once we get there? It was always the center of my life. It was the center of my career in life. I always considered that there was no other choice for me but to be involved in music. However, so I don't know if I took it more serious, but I took the opportunity to do it in a band live. I'd always taken that serious, but it seemed more real when I got here as a possibility, because that's what everybody around me was trying to do out here. Did it seem super competitive to you when you got here? Like, whoa, hold on a minute. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it was definitely, but it was also, I stuck out like a sore thumb because I'm like, Midwest guy, likes to play rock. The bottom line is I stuck out like a sore thumb, and I thought that would be a bad thing, and ended up being a really good thing. Right. I just, you can't help but be who you are. So I got into bands right away because I could sing, and I play a bunch of weird instruments like lap steels, pedal steels. And that got me into some bands, but I ultimately wanted to be in my own band, and that was the goal. Marc plays drums in the band The Record Company. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up upstate New York, a town called Elmira. We have a prison, and Mark Twain is buried there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then, so I grew up there, started my first band when I was probably 12 years old, something like that. It was one of those situations where supportive mom and dad, my mom driving the band around in the station wagon. I think one of my first gigs I remember was like in some church basement, but it wasn't a church gig. We actually opened with Slayer's Raining Blood. No. I don't know if I ever told you that, Chris, but yeah, I was thinking about that today. I'm like, what was like my first gig I remember? So needless to say, we weren't invited back for a follow-up, but And then I went to college, you know, always had bands and everything. Went to college in Pennsylvania where I met Alex, who's the other 33rd and a third percent of the group. And then after that, he moved right to LA, and I wasn't quite sure. I mean, we had bands together in college, you know, and we were doing that, but that was like.
Did you have any traction when you were playing in college? And what school were you guys at?
We went to a school called Bucknell.
Okay, I've heard of Bucknell.
Central PA.
Yep.
I wouldn't say traction. It was more like a fun thing, you know, playing fraternities, and there was like one bar in the college town, and if you could get a gig there, you had to play like 4 hours. One of those things. You know? We knew like 3 songs. So
right.
Like, all right, let's just do like an hour Shakedown Street by the Dead, and that should cover like the first set. You know?
Right.
And then Al moved out here. I actually had a friend in school in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, outside of Nashville. He was there for audio engineering, and he was like, "It's pretty fun down here, dude." And I just didn't know quite just yet where I was headed. You know what I mean? So I just moved down there, and I thought, "Oh, Nashville could be cool," and tried to start bands, but it was at a time when it was. Now it's like super band friendly, but my opinion then was it was more centered around studio work. And I'm just not a studio cat, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have the drum gloves and like all that stuff. I wanted to be in a band, and so that was tricky. Started a couple bands, but ultimately got re in touch with Alex, who was out here, and he was doing some stuff, and it kind of inspired me. He's like, "Actually, dude, my roommate is moving." And I was like, "Sweet, I'm out." And I just like loaded up, and same, had no money, anything. But and I remember I got here, and my sister actually lives here as well.
Okay.
But I didn't know anybody except Alex and her. And the day I arrived, Alex was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna quit drinking for a while. I'm just taking a break. No, not because of any problem or anything. He's just like, he just does this from time to time."
Right.
I was like, "But I don't have any friends, man." What am I supposed to do? You know? But long story short, he had a music project going. I joined that. I was playing keys with him, and he was playing guitar. So we gave that a whirl for a bit, and then started another group, just the two of us, and that lasted a few years. But it was one of those things where even though we loved the music we were doing, it was quite different from the record company, but we were into like Air and Mogwai, like, sort of explosions in the sky. You know, like I guess they call it like post rock at the time or whatever.
Yeah.
Long meandering instrumentals and 20-minute sonic adventures. You know, it basically describing it sounds like a Tenacious D.
Okay.
Of every song.
What sounds very cool about the both of you that I recognize, I believe, from the music and just the short amount of time we've hung out together is you're playing the music you want to play that makes you happy, whether it's the three of you or your previous bands that you had. This is what I like. This is what excites me. Don't tell me how to do it, and you're going to do it that way. So, Chris, Alex and Marc are living together. Alex didn't have any cocktails at the time. Marc's looking for friends. How in the world did you three then, how did you find these two?
Well, at the time, I was pretty desperate to find players, and that was something that was really challenging at that time. My life would have been a lot easier if Uber had existed, for instance. I could have gotten a job then, but I was like working for moving companies and anything I could do to make a little ends meet, and then going out with bands that didn't pay anything. And I put up at the suggestion of Val, my wife, she said to put up a Craigslist ad, which I thought was just bananas. Like, that's a crazy thing to do. But I had remembered as a kid reading this story about Guns N' Roses answering some ad and getting together. So in the back of my head, I was like, well, I guess it occasionally works out, you know. Put it up, and Alex saw it. He was like at that moment where Marc and Alex's band had kind of come to an end, and they were both they'd been out here for a while and had been contemplating like going on to a different career. You know, it's like, maybe I'll do this for fun. I'm kind of sick of the LA scene and trying to make it in this city. And I came in, and when Alex answered the ad, we got along really well, and we've been a band for 10 years now, so I know Alex like a brother at this point, and Marc, and we've been through a lot. And I can say this is so not the way it would normally go that it's a miracle it ever happened. He liked it. We got on the phone. He was like, all right, because the ad, my wife helped me write it. She like made it me sound way cooler than I really was. So he got interested, but he was very disappointed to find out that I was a dude with nothing going on but desperate need to start a band. But I sent him some of my music from my other bands, and he liked it. So he calls me one night and says, hey man, you want to come over? We're having some beers and we're going to listen to some records. And so I went and listened to some records with him. Marc came by. Marc was in a front house. They had moved to, we're living in different houses, but Marc lived in a front house. Alex lived in a back house. The house Alex lived in is ultimately the house we made our first record in, and formed a band in.
They give it back to you?
Give It Back to You record.
You made that in the house?
Yes, by ourselves with Alex producing and mixing and Marc and I kind of looking over his shoulder. So yeah, Give It Back to You record we made completely on our own. When we got signed, we named ourselves a record company because we figured nobody would ever sign us in this town. So we're like, we'll just cut out the middleman. And then when we finally got signed, we're like, okay, well, hey, it was kind of like a punk rock thing we were trying to do. We're just like, well, we'll be the record company. And then when we got signed, we handed over the record and the label was like, oh, cool. And they never asked us where we recorded it. So we were like, great. And so they're like, we'll put it out as is. There were like very minimal notes. It's like, oh, we'll turn the kick drum up a little here and there. And so that record is, and the song Off the Ground that ultimately
number one.
Hit number one. And the album got nominated for Grammy and all that stuff. We had it in our living room in 2011, excuse me, I'm getting the timeline wrong. 2015. And then it came out in 2016.
So I want to dig in a little bit to actually getting a record deal. And, so many artists of any age, when they are trying to get maybe a deal to help themselves out, to like get the music out there and get a tour going, will adapt to what the record label, small or big, what they want. You guys made this album, this first album, which had a few songs go top 5, top 10, Grammy nominated, etc. How did this label that you signed with find you? And were they cool from the get-go? Like, guys, however you're doing it, we like it.
I mean, I throughout the years out here in just how everybody does, hustling, trying to find projects and everything, managed to get a project. I was pitching it to some different labels and stuff. It was more like this jazz kind of funky, found tapes from the 60s kind of thing. So I went around, it was so cool. I went to Blue Note and a couple other places, but ultimately met the people at Concord, and they were super cool. And they're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's put it out. It wasn't a big pressure, like needs to sell hundreds of thousands of copies kind of thing. And then they let me, their history is pretty interesting. They started as kind of this very small West Coast jazz label in the 70s, and there was a lot of focus on Latin jazz. So their catalog is all this like, Cal Tjader, Mongo Santa Maria, Tito Puente, like all that kind of stuff. Really, but like the 70s stuff. So it's like greedy and cool and not all 80s polished quite just yet.
Right.
So they opened up that vault, let me do a remix of that. So it's like tracking down like, oh, Mixmaster Mike and Mario C from the Beasties, like, and they all agreed to do it because this was like some sacred stuff that hadn't been touched. And so I did that record for them, and we just stayed in touch. I made friends over there over the years. But then fast forward a good 8+ years later, when we started this band, I just casually sent over some of the early recordings we did to one of my friends over there, and he's like, there's something here, dude. I don't know what it is, but so we just kind of kept in touch. But it wasn't for maybe 4 years after that, right, Chris? I forget. Like we got a gig.
Yeah, we got a gig.
Yeah, our first big tour was with Brian Setzer.
Wow.
And this was like nationwide, playing theaters, all this kind of stuff. And
he's always going to be the coolest guy in the room. So you're walking in like, I don't know how much confidence I got. You got Brian Setzer right here.
No matter how cool I thought my hair looked, you'd walk in and go, I look like an idiot. Like he's just going to win that battle of everything. And so that was really cool. But getting to see him play, I knew he was a great guitarist. I didn't realize the level of like virtuoso that guy is. So that was a musical education as well. But the cool thing was we were playing the Fox in Detroit, which is a beautiful, like 5,000 seater. It was packed. And it's a rock and roll crowd in Detroit, as I'm sure you know.
Yep.
And we just had a great set. We would go out and sign our stuff, our little EPs that we brought with us, like at the table. And there was just this line, like a Disneyland roller coaster ride line.
Yeah, they had ropes up and stuff. It made us look real good that night. The Fox Theater helped us that night.
Yeah, it looked cool. And then there happened to be Concord sent some reps from, I think, Cleveland or something to come up and see the show.
Cleveland.
And that helped. And then ultimately we played a show in LA at the Regent, where John Burke, who was the head of the label at the time, was there. And he just came backstage, and it was kind of old school, man. It was like, boys, let's do it. Handshake. And we're like,
you guys are great. And he's like, we want to sign your band. And I shook his hand and I said, sounds good to me. We shook his hand. I said, let's let the people who make the paperwork make the paperwork. And we worked that. It took a little time to get that together, and then we signed it and we were off.
That is so cool. Wow. Chris, it's somewhat of a personal question, but I'm very, very curious. So your wife is really doing well in LA, and that's why you guys come here.
Mm-hmm.
You have this new band, and now all of a sudden it goes from, I'm a struggling musician, I'm trying to make it, and it's really happening for you guys. Honey, I have to leave the house and go on the road. Did it create any tension in the relationship, or did it improve it?
It created absolutely none, because she was the one that saw me when I was, just in college. We've been together since college, and she saw me play at an open mic, and she was like, from the moment we met, she was like, this is what you're supposed to do. She believed in me more than I believed in me. And so there was no, and it was one of the greatest moments for me was proving myself kind of wrong and proving her kind of right. I believed in myself, don't get me wrong, but I'm Midwest and Wisconsin, where humility is just, and just keeping your ego as low as you can, especially outwardly, even if you do believe in yourself, is just, it's not like even a thing. It's just the thing, it's a way you're taught to be. It's like, keep it down. And that's the opposite of kind of like what, I've seen work out here in some respects, so it was great to get to give that back. And to people, like, I had supportive parents too. My dad, farmer, my mom, a nurse. Neither of them could do anything to help me in the business other than let me borrow their van when I was, like Marc was saying, and just say, go for it, and it's great. It was great to my grandpa Don, was a farmer, passed away right after we got our number one. And he one of my last conversations with him, he said, and I knew he was sick. He knew it. And he was a musician too, off the side when he wasn't farming. And then he said, I'm proud of you. And that meant, that to me that was it, man. That meant more to me than almost anything else that happened, was those personal connections of people who had believed in me a long time, and to be able to look them in the eye and go, we're not crazy people. We did it. So that was a great, feeling. So good. God, what's so inspired just hearing all of these things. Album number 1 does great. You have to go make album number 2, All of This Life. Did you guys ever get in your own heads getting into this second album? Like, oh my God, things are going so great. What the hell are we going to do now? What was it like? We didn't have time. Okay. I don't mean to jump in there, Marc, but we didn't have time to get in our own heads. I think the only thing I love that album. We wrote it basically between road gigs and everything. So we didn't really have as much time with it as we wanted, but we still came out with, it's Life to Fix was a song that number one song. Yes, he putting up the number 1. You can say it and then I can agree with you. Right. That's the Midwest way. But yes, that song hit number 1. And so that album was great. And then the Play It Loud record was really awesome that we're about to put out. That was amazing because we actually had so much time because of not being able to do anything else, which sucked. But one of the only bright spots in a very crappy year for the whole world and us was that we got a lot of time to write this record and get it, give it the time we hadn't been able to give the second record. The video that I love and the song that I love, and I love a lot of the songs, but I want to start off, let's talk about the new record, How High.
So it's the single comes out and the video is unbelievable, very smart, very well done. And the song is doing really well. When you're sitting there late at night, Marc, you're by yourself at home. Do you ever go, "Phew, oh God, thank God, this thing's it's maybe it sounds like the record company. It's a hint, maybe different, but it's working."
You know, I'm in the Chris camp as far as just being like, we're pretty humble dudes. So anything, of course, when you put it out, you have no idea, and people will talk. And, I think this could be the one or this, and I think we've gotten pretty good at just kind of like, okay, you want the support from people around you and all that, but it just really only matters like, are we proud of the thing we did? And I hope it resonates, but there's really no, I mean, we keep ourselves up at night making this record. There was plenty of sleepless nights and
yes,
worry and all that, of course. But I mean, when it came to something like Chris was saying, we've never had the opportunity to like have an album in the can, and now we've got all this time to come up with what do we want to do visually, videos, little things. We did a whole side EP of covers, in that time. But the approach to the video was just there was a golden era to me to us of music videos, which was sort of the 90s, right? Bands in the 90s. You had great stuff in the 80s for sure, but to me that was, I'm a 90s kid growing up, and so we're kind of like, let's just nod to that, man. And we hooked up with this director Nathan Cox and his partner, his producing partner Corey, and he came over to do the sort of quote unquote pitch. We already knew we wanted to work with him, but
right.
So he just came over to my house where we all met. We're having some drinks, and we come back to this room. Remember this, Chris? And he like,
yes.
Can I hook into your Apple TV or whatever? How do I stream something? And I'm like, okay. And he just like hit play, and it was just title cards of each scene. I can't even explain this, but we sat there, we're like, oh my God, dude, this is amazing. Like, and he's narrating it, and he's like all energy.
And the
and
songs playing at the same time, so it was like, yeah, you could visually, the eye of the mind was wide open, and it was amazing, and after having done it was great to get. The album was produced by Dave Sardy,
yes,
who did like Oasis, LCD Sound System, New Modest Mouse record,
Wolf Mother as well.
Wolf Mother, yeah. Red Hot Chili Peppers, One Hot Minute, even way back in the day. That was like one of his first projects he was on. And so having this sound of this album we're very insular. We did, as you would be, we did everything. We were very like, we'll do it ourselves. We can do it ourselves. We can do it ourselves. And then after 10 years of that, we're like, we're out of moves. We've got songs, but when we demo, right, Marc, when we demoed, that's your line. Marc goes, I got no more moves. I'm sick of my moves. We need somebody to get us some new moves. And it's like, you've been doing the same steps for a while. And it's like, that works. First record, you establish who you are. Second record, you expand it. Third record's time to challenge yourself and grow, I think. And that's what we learned looking at bands like that we admire. Springsteen says, watch your heroes, they'll teach you how to do it right. Stones now is blues, blah 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 blah, and then but you get to let it bleed. It's like there's a progression of things happening there, and it's like you can learn that. So we were talking about that, and this sound of this album is what happens when you take the energy of Dave Sardy, which, summing him up in a couple sentences, is Dave Sardy, vastly experienced, huge personality, way over the top, like excited when he's in it, and he's honest. He will not let anything get past the goalie. We're that way too. It's like, if he had an idea, we didn't like it, we'd be like, nah. And if he had an idea, or we had an idea, he didn't like it, he'd be like, nah, I'm buying it. And that's how you make things better, right? Instead of getting all hurt feelings, it's like,
but wasn't that uncomfortable at times? But which can lead to something great. Like sometimes when I feel uncomfortable doing any of my little super small things, I'm like, I have such a stomach ache, I can't sleep, but then I get through it. I'm like, thank God someone kind of guided me to go in this direction.
I don't think it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable in the fact that you knew you had to dig deeper, but it was like, you knew that his intent, he was losing sleep on this record, just like we were. So you knew that was happening. But the sound of this record is Dave Sardy. This is him in a nutshell. He's a jet engine. He's either sitting on the tarmac waiting to go 600 miles an hour, or he's going 600 miles an hour through the sky, and you are on that ride. And if you're not ready to go 600 miles an hour with him, if you're not buckled up, you're going to be thrown out the back of the plane. You know, it's like, so when he answers texts, he answers them with whole attention. You know, when he listens to something, there's nothing else in the world other than listening. And that was a great lesson, I think, of focus and energy. And he held us to, wouldn't you say, Marc, he held us to a high accountable, like he elevated our songwriting, he elevated our sound. He was like, throw the idea of being a 3-piece out the window, make the record you want to make.
Wow.
You know? And that was, so we brought, so it's like, oh, let's put a bunch of keys on it. Let's do all this other stuff. What do you think, Marc?
Well, it's funny. Yeah. Cause I've been listening to that, the Metallica podcast about the Black Album, like 30th anniversary. And it's really, I love it. Like Metallica to me is, you know, growing up, like the big 4 albums, you know what I mean? And
me too.
And
as well, I love those first 4 Metallica records.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, I'll listen to this, you know, of course. And there's I think it's like the second one is when they talk about going in with Bob Rock, who's the guy who produced the record.
Sure.
And, you know, we had never had a producer. It was Alex in his room. And then, you know, we would record our stuff. Chris and I go home. Al would send mixes, you know, he's doing all the editing and stuff like that. But we had never had like a formal, you know, producer. This is what this person does for a living. As Costanza says, they're men with jobs, Gary. Yeah. We've never really had that, you know. And hearing the Metallica story is like, they had a producer, this guy Fleming, who had done those 4 albums, but it was really Lars and James kind of doing it all. And then to go in with Bob Rock and just to hear sort of that similarity and like it's hard letting somebody new in when you're just like, I mean, we wanted to do it. I think that was a difference, but like at first you're kind of like, oh, we don't really know this person. You know, we've sat down a couple times and hung out, but we've known each other for almost 10 years now. Who are you? You know, and like, but that went away super quick. And he built like this, it was just a very comfortable place to be and have an opinion and try stuff. I mean, I think we tracked most of the stuff, drums, bass, and guitar live, like we always did, which I love doing, you know, no clicks, no click tracks in it. Like, let's just play.
Wow.
If speeds up, slows down, that's human. That's a rock band to me, you know. Some of those great Stones records where the tambourine is so off and you're like, that's got to be on purpose because it's so cool, you know, like, but yeah, we did it the same way we always did it. But then it was kind of like, all right, now try this or try that. But he wasn't sitting there with like a dictatorial hand, like hit the kick drum 3 times and, you know, stuff. It was just like ideas everywhere. And it was super fun.
Damn, you guys are pros, man. I'm like learning so much from you guys. You guys are total pros and letting this dude in the room and then being like listening, and the 4 of you now doing this album together. The song Gotta Be Moving, and it's a great video as well. Is that at all, I may have seen this, Beastie Boys inspired? Yes or no on that, Chris?
Well, we love the Beastie Boys. Huge fans. You know,
The License to Ill, Paul's Boutique, Hello Nasty, is one of them gravitate more towards you?
Check Your Head.
Check Your Head. There we go.
That really crushed me.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. NL Communication. The Beastie Boys. Well, the guitar riff sounds like an old sample that you would hear on like a one of those, again, 90s like Cypress Hill records or something, where they just would have that repetitive like pentatonic minor riff, you know. And it's like, that was when I heard that riff. Alex wrote it actually, and he sent it. He's our bass player, but he's also a great guitar player. And he and I come from 2 different schools of thought. Like, I come from a more like punk, aggressive, like, you know, but loving Muddy Waters, loving like junky old like stuff like that, nasty.
Chris, I'll put it this way, quick, guitar wise. At the end of a show, Chris's guitar will be on the stage with no strings left in a smoldering heap of destruction. Alex's guitar will be neatly placed on the stand,
yes,
shimmering, waiting for its next, you know, David Gilmour.
Perfect way to say it.
Is that a fair comparison, Chris?
I think, yeah. I'm just, yeah. You're exactly right. That's exactly right. and they complement each other, you know. So it was time. We needed another voice from the guitar in this band on this record. And his voice it was like holding back an ace card, you know. It just we knew he had it, and so he just got really hot writing at the right time, and he just kept sending stuff, and it was like, yes, that's great, yes, that's great, yes, that's great. So that riff was that, and then the big beat thing, like I think even in that this the track where I think there were a couple of, he had a big room for the drums, then Dave had a small little tight room that like he did the LCD sound system drums in that, like it's a real drum kit, but he can almost made it sound like an 808 if he wanted, because he had such manipulation over it.
It was just an ISO punchy ass room, and the kit was like an 18 kick. So not to get too nerdy about it, but your normal drum set that you'd see is like a 22-inch kick drum. John Bonham's is a 26. It basically looks like a concert mark or a bass drum.
Right. Disappear behind it.
Yeah. But then like the smaller you get, the more tighter and punchier. So he had this 18-inch kick, just a snare and a hi-hat, and that was it. And that was our sort of dance room. So anytime we wanted to do something like more in that LCD Talking Heads kind of vein, where the drums are not doing a whole lot, they're just smacking in those fills, I definitely nod my head to Talking Heads a lot on some of those fills that are just simple, but to me as effective as I could be. So that one we did both. I did the punchy room, and then in the live room I had a 26-inch kick, just a big sounding kit. And so I think we tried that, but I don't really remember which was which on that. But what I like about it, it has that sort of 808 like under drive, but then there's like the middle parts that I think get a little Beasties, like the musical parts. I don't know, the turnarounds and stuff. Reminds me of like, I went to see them once at I think it was like the old Gibson Amphitheater here at Universal.
Yeah,
City.
Universal Gibson Amphitheater. Yeah, the Beastie Boys played there. I saw them play there. I've seen them play there.
Yeah, and I think that was the show where it was like 2 sets, but the second they came out in suits and ties and did instrumental.
Yeah.
And like that was the doper shit. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't need to be sold anymore, but like, so that's always kind of been an inspiration for us too, is like, just how do you make that cool? How do you do it like they did, you know? And I'll tell you a quick story that is like a loose Beastie story, but Alex and I were at Bonnaroo just as fans for what turned out to be their last show ever.
Okay.
Right, they headlined Bonnaroo, and then fast forward, I don't know the exact number of years, but we were playing main stage Bonnaroo on the anniversary of that show, and we come out and I'm like, dude, we were here. This is where MCA played, you know, last time we saw him and everything. And we're debating before we go on. And, you know, it's main stage Bonnaroo is like a pretty big.
It's a big deal. I've been there. Yep. I've been there.
And we're like, I think we got to play Sabotage, man. We hadn't played it in a while. No rehearsal or anything. We're like, all right, let's go. Chris, if you feel so inclined, tell a quick little story. And we went, and the place just went bonkers. It was.
And you nailed it without really rehearsing it, Chris. You guys as
one chord, and I'll never forget the lyrics. You know,
but still, main stage Bonnaroo. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. The 2 times we did that thing off the cuff. One was at Red Rocks. First time we played at Red Rocks, and the other one was at Bonnaroo, like off the cuff. And we played it after we played it there. We did it a couple more times, but it was something where it was like we didn't want to make it like something that people, you got to watch it with stuff like that. It's like Dave Sardy, who said, he's like, it's good to have a little bit of candy, but you don't want to have it be like too much, you know, here's the candy, you know. It's like, yes, you could play Sabotage every night, but you know, in the end, you've written these songs, and we've always been in original bands. I've always been in original bands. It's like you want to stand on your own songs, but yeah, that was a hell of a moment. I mean, that felt amazing. And that's what I've always loved about us. We know enough to be safe, but we also know enough about rock and roll to know that part of it is being reckless in a very important moment and doing something that's could be a disaster.
We need that.
You got to be able to fly into that with complete we're going to do this, and if you face it that way, those can be some of the best parts of a show. Those can be some of the best parts of an album. Those can be some of the best parts of an interview, anything,
God
so
damn, I want that line. I'm taking that line and I'm going to send it to every single 12-year-old, 18-year-old who is forming a band or thinking about starting a band, because that is great right there. 3 albums in, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger for you guys. Thank you for joining the show. I appreciate that. And Marc, the name of this is Tuna on Toast because of Seinfeld. Nothing worked out for George when he ordered tuna on toast.
Yep.
I'm hoping it works out for me.
Just whatever your
chicken salad,
do the opposite.
That's right.
Chicken salad on rye, I think.
Oh no, Marc and I have a very deep Seinfeld knowledge, the two of us. I mean, as a matter of fact, we get so dorky that like we've discussed what's the best characters and stuff that have just been in it once. My personal favorite is Timmy. It's like putting your whole mouth in the dip. Just take one dip and end it. It's like that kid threw himself wholeheartedly into that 1.5 minutes on screen. Just fantastic.
Actually, a few years ago, I know we got to jump, but this is a few years ago, more than 10 years ago, before this band, I was inventing ways to make money. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
I started, and I'm not kidding you, I have an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. I thought I'm going to write a Seinfeld Trivial Pursuit and go pitch it to whoever makes Trivial Pursuit. And I had the categories. I started doing it, and then I just stopped for some reason. But I'll track that down because I
doubt the Moops would have been on there.
Oh, the Moops, of course.
Not the Moors.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's the Moops.
Moops.
There's no Moops.
Nothing could be finer than whatever is in your diner. Like, I want to sign that autograph.
I want that autograph back. You can't have it. Yeah, no, we could do this. This could be a whole nother interview.
Marc, I wrote a Seinfeld script all those years ago. I was a kid and I wrote it. And the plot is there was an Easter Bunny parade, an Easter parade, and Kramer got the gig as the Easter Bunny, but all he ate leading up to it were carrots. So he needed Jerry to make a carrot cake. He's like, "Oh, I'm on carrot," and I was like, I was like, I don't know, low 20s when I wrote it. I was living in Tucson, Arizona. I didn't give it to anybody, but I passed it off to my friends. They seemed to like it.
Oh, it's a great idea.
Guys, we bonded, I think. Oh my God, I love you guys.
It's amazing.
Thank you so much for being on, and congratulations on the career you guys have built. And as I said, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and enjoy the ride.
Well, hopefully we get to talk again.
You're welcome to come on out November 22nd. We're ending the tour in LA.
Terragram Ballroom, is that right?
Terragram. Love to have you as our guest of honor. So.
I'll be there. Thank you so much. I'll be there. All right, guys. Good luck on the tour. See you guys later.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care as well. Bye. Hope you enjoyed. Now hit that subscribe button. And for more Tuna on Toast, listen wherever you get your podcasts.